Test 1, 2. Sounds like we have sound. Sounds like we have sound.
Ready to come in?
I am ready to come in. Udicci.TV. Live now. Updates at 6:30. Verbum at 7. Okay. 7.
Riveting television.
Tune in. Okay. So once again we're doing social media, does social media. Well, welcome to Udicci Updates. Today is December 10th, 2015, and we don't know. This could be the last update of the year. We don't really know. Seems like a lot of questions up in the air lately, and we're not quite sure. So we'll try to keep you informed via social media. So what's going on? We've had an interesting year, and I've learned a ton of stuff. Had some great opportunities. Had a wonderful First Friday last week. It's First Friday. It really was. First Friday was a lot of fun last week. Obviously, our next First Friday is going to be January 1st, so I don't even know that we'll be open or doing a live stream, but who knows? Maybe that'll happen too. Who knows? Anyway, so here we are at the Hungerford building, and a funny look on Tim's face as he's thinking that perhaps, I don't know, sound isn't working, streaming isn't working, something is...
You're streaming.
We're streaming, so apparently it's not that weird.
It's something else going on here, so
okay.
I'll track into it.
I'll just keep doing this.
The peoples.
All right, I'll track it. So, but what weird thing is happening, Tim?
It's not coming up on Udicci.TV right now.
It's not coming up on Udicci.TV right now.
I am working toward...
Tune in now to www.udicci.tv.
12:10.
Tune in now to Udicci.tv. Why?
Oh, you know what? I bet.
I don't know. Just because we're doing it.
Oh, wait a minute.
And Merry Christmas.
There we go. We got that. Okay. Okay, you want to keep talking so that I can...
Oh, you actually want to see if it's working now?
Yes, it is working.
Okay.
Good.
So luckily we know that really that was more riveting TV. So let's take a little updates. There have been a lot of changes. I don't know how much we should be sharing publicly right now, but certainly people who are coming to the studio get some behind-the-scenes look, and we're happy to share that. But there's some pretty incredible things that are happening right now in Rochester, and I guess I'd say it's time for revival. It really is. Last year was time for renewal. And that's how we closed the season last year, was that it was time for renewal, and I think that it's now time for revival. And today we're seeing some real huge movement happening in the Church of Rochester, and the churches seem like they really want to come together, want to get out and start making a difference in poverty in our community. We're seeing a lot of things to start helping our children in many different ways. And there's just a real murmuring. There's just movement that's happening. It's like I don't know if we could call it a shaking yet by any stretch of the imagination, but, maybe a tremor here and there. Something that's really kind of happening. And we're on December 30th, we're going to be having a meeting, a social gathering out at the youth, what is it? The youth, YFC? Christian Youth, something that'll be out there, and
Used to be the Boys and Girls Club.
and I think that that could be the beginning of something very special, and it's something we've been working on now for the entire year, and it's been coming together a little bit more so as of September. And you've heard, if you watched with Bill Wishmeyer when he was on, and we were talking about the co-op opportunities and sort of the opportunity to start investing back into our community. teaching other people who may not have a trade and helping them learn, and also providing people with opportunities to actually go out and make additional income if they'd like to. And I think, well, first off, when it comes to fighting poverty, that's something we have to have, right? Income opportunities have to be something that are available, and we certainly need to do more about getting the money flowing in our community. And we also have to be really reinvesting that money back into our community. Each time that we have some come in, we need to put it right back in so we can kind of get that circular motion going that you really want to see with the community. And I don't think it's going to be just here in Rochester, but I believe it's going to start here in Rochester. And as of today, we started hearing a little bit about Syracuse. It looks like maybe we're hearing like rumblings of Ithaca. I don't know. There's stuff happening. There's definitely stuff happening, and I'd love to be more clear, but I don't know that we have that kind of clarity. We have a ton of plans. We have some goals being set out there, and we're definitely looking for more people to get involved because at this point we're all stretched way too thin. We do need some strength. We need some resources brought to the table. We're trying to shout as loud as we can that good things are happening and good things are ready to happen. And we just need some help. We need some help. But there are some great things happening in Rochester. I want to give us a shout out to D. Will today. Taking a prayer request out on Facebook. I thought that was really kind of cool and a brave thing to do. I know it doesn't sound like real brave to take it, but if you could see the number of people that were just asking for prayer and understand what they're asking for there is they're asking for help. They're asking that somebody would care for them, and the number of prayer requests that dealt with this anxiety and depression, and that's not good. We can't live in this world where we're just chasing, trying to run from all of our problems and run from what's not right. We really do have to come together as a community, and we really can. It's time for unity, and that's, if there's anything that we're seeing right now, it's, there's a lot of people that want to talk division. And I think it's about time, enough of that. I think it's about time to end that division. And then you start to see some piety out there, and you start to see people like, well, if you cared about people, you'd do this. And you don't really find compassion, and you don't find agreement by saying, if you would act as I think you should act, then things would be well, right? Because that's just saying, I really don't care how you think. I really don't care how you believe. I just care what I think, and I'm going to try to make you look bad by stating my beliefs and saying what you're not doing. We need to start having dialogue. We need to start having conversation around the topics that are pertinent, around the topics that you feel called to really, that you're passionate about. But we need to start looking for points that we can agree upon. We need to start finding those points where we can come together and say, all right, I can speak those same words with you. I can get behind those words. And stop worrying about well, no, we need more of this and less of this and more of that. How about let's really get to the root causes? We need more people who truly care about life. We need to start preaching the value of life, right? Because life itself brings us joy. And for people who doubt that, just if you have children, recall that moment that you first held them. Recall the moment you first saw your child. Right? Just remember those moments. I don't know of a person that when they first looked upon their child, that there wasn't just an overwhelming joy. Regardless of the rest of the world, right? Regardless of what else was going on in the world, I don't care what, that child, there was still hope. And even in the worst of circumstances, even when maybe that child wasn't as you would have hoped it had come into the world, there's still a love, there's still something about that life that gives us hope. And it's not hard to understand, right? With each new life, it reminds us there still is a tomorrow. That regardless of what it is that we're fighting today and what it is we're struggling against today, there always will be tomorrow, and life will go on. And where we can find hope in that it is, as long as we're breathing, we have that life within us. And we need to just start really searching for the source of joy and the source of hope. And for many people, That is Jesus Christ. For many people, they find it in their faith that there is true peace and there is hope, because there are this message that says, together we live. And I think we need to really begin looking at that. We need to start really speaking hope into our city. And we need to begin really pursuing it. So, I don't know where any of that came from, but yeah, there we go. So I guess we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about something, and I don't quite know. You know what? Let's talk about microaggression.
I was just going to say, do you want to...
We'll cue up microaggression. So enjoy this
Short break. And
this short break, and then microaggression.
Occidental College in California is considering instituting a system for students to report so-called microaggressions perpetrated against them on campus. Microaggressions are statements that intentionally or unintentionally send a negative message related to someone's membership in a marginalized group. We visited campus to ask Occidental students if they agree that the following statements could be considered microaggressions. They've all been documented as such on a college campus somewhere in the United States.
Have you heard of the term microaggression?
Yeah, that's a big thing on campus. If we see large-scale violence, we can name that as a macroaggression, but the way that we devalue that violence, the way that we silence that violence, that's a microaggression.
I'm asking an Asian American, where were you born?
Yes.
Asking somebody where they were born. Is that microaggression? So I think that's interesting. Now, so microaggression, did you catch that definition where it is something being said whether intentionally or unintentionally? You want to go back to that a little bit there? Or you could even just kind of go back to the post it up and we can kind of read it, right? Yeah. So this is interesting. And I think there's something to this idea. I do. I think that there's something to what's going on here, right? But microaggression. Statements which communicate hostility, hostile, right? Derogatory, or negative messages to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group of membership. There's a lot there, but like something said unintentionally. I'd ask how that can be aggression, but I guess I could get there, right? That After being married for many, many years, and maybe my wife and I are going through a little period of time where we're just not seeing eye to eye, and I say something, even if it's unintentional, maybe it's not with the right heart, right? That it comes across as aggressive. So I can understand this concept of microaggression, aggression. Maybe it's a passive aggression as a way of saying it, and it's interesting because the idea here is to start deflating hate speech, which is good, right? That's really good, and I do think it's important that we can start getting to points and times where we can have very real and meaningful conversation. So I do think that the idea here, and hopefully the heart behind it was right, but I think that there's a problem, and let's go ahead and watch this again for just a little bit of time. Watch, now mind you, the gentleman asking the questions here. The gentleman asking the questions is asking, okay, these are reported incidents of microaggression, right? They're keeping a database of microaggression on the campus in hopes of really diffusing any situations. Good. Again, the heart is good here. But let's start seeing what's happening here. Where were you born? Sorry, I didn't really mean that to be offensive. Let's watch this again.
If they agree that the following statements could be considered microaggressions. They've all been documented as such on a college campus somewhere in the United States.
Have you heard of the term microaggression?
Yeah, that's a big thing on campus. If we see large-scale violence, we can name that as a macroaggression, but the way that we devalue that violence, the way that we silence that violence, that's a microaggression.
I'm asking an Asian American, where were you born?
Yes.
Very, very contextual,
That's not a microaggression, that's just asking where they were born.
Telling a black student that he or she is very articulate.
That is, yeah. Yes.
What about saying all lives matter?
I think because the history behind Black Lives Matter, it's kind of like appropriating a statement that was created specifically to talk about Black lives being lost to police brutality, so that is.
I'm colorblind, I don't see Ray.
Person, right?
You had no,
Okay, so where are we in a society, right? And again, I'm not trying to stir up the waters here, but where are we that if I'm a white person and I say to a black person, you're very articulate, that is somehow aggressive. If I were to say that to my business partner, like, wow, you're very articulate. If I were to say that to my daughter, you're very articulate. People would look at me and go like, oh, that father actually is encouraging his daughter. He's actually speaking to her something that is true and good. He's actually showing her a talent that she has. He's raising up a talent, something that perhaps she's very worked on, and she's strengthened her vocabulary. So how is it telling somebody that they're articulate is aggressive? Now, don't get me wrong, I actually do understand, right? There could be an assumption on somebody's part that what you're saying is, wow, I'm surprised that you're articulate. But why do we go into a conversation assuming the worst? Right? If we're actually saying something that should be perceived as a compliment and we're calling it aggression, how are we going to actually lift one another up? Now I hear the idea there. We've got to stop the macroaggression, and we do that by devaluing it through stopping the microaggression. But sometimes even the most well-intentioned things start to speak to this. We're still just humans. We're all still in this journey together. We all find our hope differently. We all have a separate way that we go about finding the goodness in life. But the moment we start thinking that, you're going to lump me in with somebody who might actually say, wow, you're very articulate. I mean, imagine Roland Williams when he was on our show. Here's a man who graduated from Newhouse School of Communication, right? A great communication school in Syracuse. Now, Super Bowl champion, going out there helping the kids. If I looked at him and said, wow, you are so articulate, I'm going to think he's going to go like, yeah, man, hey, that's what I studied. I mean, that's who I am. Maybe from day one he had a gift, and that's how he ended up actually being a communicator. Right? So think about that. How are we going to actually begin encouraging people if even that which is meant for good could be perceived as bad, and then the person who might have meant it for good is being told, you can't say that. Now, isn't that itself microaggression? Haven't we got to the point where we actually have no interest in communication, and instead we want to get to the point where we remove everybody's identity? We want everybody to be this, we call it a level playing field, but aren't we really trying to say, get rid of your personality, get rid of your value, get rid of your understanding, think like me, act like me, speak like me, hear like me, and that's the only way that I could look at you and actually show you any kind of respect. Is it really that we can't have respect for the individual without respecting the individual's beliefs? I mean, can't I disagree with a person's choices and still respect the individual themselves? Yeah, we can. We truly can do that. Let's let that run for just a little bit more, because there's some other stuff in here that I'm sitting here going like, wow, tell me what the real purpose behind all of this is. So yeah, I'm going to just let this run for another minute or so, and then we'll come back because this is kind of interesting.
Possibly.
I believe the most qualified person should get the job.
Qualifications aren't really the only thing you should consider when hiring someone.
If you're saying that the most qualified person is someone who is not a minority or not of a religion you believe in, then yes, that'd be a microaggression.
Saying God bless you after somebody sneezes.
Oh, that would be a microaggression because of different religions.
Yeah, it could be a microaggression to someone who doesn't believe in God.
I think that the harm there is relatively minimal.
So there's still some harm though.
I would say there's not harm, but if it's being asked, clearly someone found.
Maybe mini microaggression.
Perhaps.
Do you see any downside to...
So is there any harm in that? I wouldn't say that there's any harm. But clearly, if somebody's saying there's harm, then there must be some harm in that. Where's the harm? God bless you. You sneezed. That's cultural. For many of us, we don't even think about it. You don't have to have a faith to say God bless you. It's just one of those things we grew up with. You know, some people say Gesundheit. Oh, now I'm offended that you didn't say God bless. How about we simply say, when I sneezed, somebody actually cared enough to go, oh, hey, dude, sorry you sneezed. Right? I mean, basically, isn't that what that is? Is just some sort of cultural norm for millions of people to sit there and say, God bless you? That we now have to call that microaggression because the person themselves who I might be saying it to thinks differently than I do. How about the person receiving it can sit there and go like, all right, I don't believe in their God, but hey, thank you. How about it's microaggression toward me that you're offended because I have a God? Where is this going? How are we ever going to get to any real communication if all we're ever doing is measuring each and every word? How about if we start looking for the spirit of the conversation? God bless you. Thank you. I sneezed. Need a handkerchief? And we go on our merry way. Can you imagine going home that night at dinner? Hey, honey. Hey, kids. Let me tell you about this. This afternoon, some dude said, God bless you. Whoa, and offered a handkerchief. Whoa, amazing. Let me go post on Facebook about how awful that person is. Getting into the qualifications about a job, right? And I hear, well, if the qualifications are a marginalized group, that wasn't the question. And you see what's happening here is we're actually raising a generation that is being forced to analyze each and every word. And man cannot live with that kind of law. Now, it would be wonderful if each and every one of us was brought up in the exact same way that we knew which words were meant in anger, and hopefully none of those, because any kind of anger must be bad, but that each of us could speak in the same tone, and the same rhythms, right? That there was nothing except for exactly what you need to hear, when you need to hear it, how you want to hear it. So that way we all could understand each other really nice and simple. Right? I mean, I don't know where we're going with all this, but these ideas are wonderful. But how about if we stop looking for the offense and looking for the agreement? Now, the point here of the microaggressions is wonderful. Let's stop before we speak. Let's take a moment and think. Am I doing this with the wrong motive? Or better yet, ask myself, what is the motive I'm doing this? Is my heart right as I'm about to speak these words? Am I speaking something meant to bring encouragement and hope? Am I speaking something that is meant for the good of another? Or am I trying to tear down the other? Now, how about if we allow the person to judge their own heart a little bit, instead of actually reporting things to some database where now we have a little record that somebody said, God bless you, when I sneezed. I don't know where we're going, but I do know that we have to change. Good idea here with talking about microaggression, but it just isn't going to give us, it's just going to find more reason to argue, more reason to divide. We're going to find one more reason. You bigot. You say, God bless you, when somebody sneezes. All right, well, it looks like we'll be back in about a minute to 2 minutes or a few minutes. And we have a guest tonight, Brian Heffron, who is going to be talking about some upcoming missions trips that he's doing. And we're going to hear about the work that they're doing, I believe, in South Africa, right? All right, we'll be back.